This video is on systems of linear equations. We're going to be solving them by graphing, so that means we're going to be using our calculator. So as before, I'm going to write out the steps that we must use to solve these by graphing. The first step is to solve both equations for y. Because we need to put it into slope-intercept form so we can graph them. We have to have them equal to y so we can graph them into our calculator. Step 2 is to plug both of these equations into our calculator, into the y equals button. Once we have done this, we're going to graph it. Once we graph it, we're going to see if the lines are crossing each other. That's one of the first things you need to do after you plug them in. See if they're going to cross. If you don't see them crossing, you can zoom out or zoom fit to see where they're going to cross. Once you can see where they're crossing, you're going to press the buttons second, trace, because this will lead you to the calculate button. Then step 4 is on the calculator, you're going to find where it says intersect. Now for most of us, it'll say the number 5. It'll say intersect. This is the one we want. Anytime we want to find a solution in our calculator, we will have to go to the intersect. Where are they crossing each other? Then the final step, if we're solving for a system of linear equations, you only have to press enter. You press that button, enter, but you have to do it 3 times. Because it will actually say first curve, second curve, guess. So as long as you have a system of linear, it'll be a little bit easier because the first curve will be your first equation. The second curve will be your second equation. And you don't want to guess where the answer is, you just want it to find the equation or find the answer. So we need to go ahead and set both of these equations equal to y. So I'm going to separate them. I'm going to do one of them in blue, so 2x minus y equals -1. I'm going to solve for y here. I need to subtract the 2x from both sides. So I'm going to have -y equals a -2x and then -1. If I keep the -1. But I have a negative y, so I have to divide by that negative. So I'm just going to change all the signs, basically. That's all that's really happening. So I'll have y equals. This negative will become a positive 2x, and this -1 will become a positive 1. So this is my first equation that I'm going to type into y equals. And then for the second one, I'm going to do in purple. I have that -5x plus y equals -5. I need to add the 5x to the other side, so I'll have a y equals a positive 5x minus 5. Now the y is by itself, so I have solved for y on this one. Now that we have them both equal to y, we're going to go to our calculator. So I'm going to pull up my calculator. I'm going to follow these steps. So I'm going to turn my calculator on. I'm going to go to the y equals button, which is right up here. Y equals. Now I'm going to plug in these 2 equations into y equals. Now, since I have 2 equations, I'm going to plug one into y1 and one into y2. My first one I'm going to plug into y1, which is that 2x plus 1. Then in my second y equals, I'm going to plug in my second equation, which is 5x minus 5. Now I'm going to press graph just to see if I can see the 2 lines crossing. That's what I want to see. Are they crossing? They are crossing, and I can see the location. I might not be able to find it exactly by looking at it, but I can see that they're crossing. So now that we know that they're crossing, we're going to press the second trace because we want to calculate an answer. So second trace, because that's the blue, that's calc. And we want to find where they're intersecting. So I'm going to go down to where it says intersect. So it goes to the and press enter, so it goes to the graph. As I said, it'll say first curve. Then it will say second curve, then it will say guess. So I'm going to press enter 3 times. So 1, now it says second curve. 2, now it says guess. 3. Our intersection, we do not stop, press, and enter until it says intersection. Once it says on the calculator what it is we are trying to calculate, then we can stop. So the x is 2 and the y is 5. That means that the coordinate is 2, 5. So I'm going to write parentheses 2, 5, close parentheses. And we can see in our graph that does look to be at about 2, 5 from just looking at it. But we always want to find the actual answer using our calculator instead of just looking at it, because those could have been decimals. On the next example, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to solve both equations for y equals and then plug them into our calculator. Now this first equation that says negative 2x minus 5y equals 17, and the second equation is y equals negative 4x plus 11. So the second equation is already equal to y, so we don't even have to do anything with it. But it's that first equation we do. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2x minus 5y equals 17. I want to get the y by itself, so I need to add the 2x to the other side. So I will have negative 5y equals a positive 2x and a positive 17. The next step is to divide by that negative 5 to get rid of it on the left-hand side. So I'll have y equals 2 divided by negative 5 is negative 2/5 x. 17 divided by negative 5 is a negative 17/5. I have this in slope-intercept form. And my second equation is already in slope-intercept form, so I'll rewrite that in that pink or purple, whichever color. Y equals negative 4x plus 11. Now I can plug these into my calculator. So I still have the last example in there. I'm going to zoom out some. I'm going to go to my y equals. I'm going to clear these out from y1 and y2. So going back to y1, I'm going to type in negative 2/5. Some calculators will have the software that if you press alpha, y equals, so it's the green button and then the F1, alpha, y equals. You can actually type it in as a fraction. So I can type in that negative 2, and then the denominator is 5, but I do need to make sure my x is on the outside. But if you do not have that, you can always put fractions in parentheses. Parentheses you use with fractions. So then you would press minus, and again, if I don't have that alpha y equals, the F1, then I'm going to use parentheses. So I'll put parentheses 17 divided by 5, close parentheses. It does the same thing. The second equation, I'm going to type in that negative 4x plus 11. Please make sure you do type in a negative and not a minus, because a negative and a minus, if I put a minus, the minus button, do you see how the differences between the negative and the minus are? This would give you a syntax error, so please be careful on making sure this is a negative in the front and a minus second. I'm going to delete that because I don't want that in there. So again, I'm going to press graph to see if I can see my two lines crossing. There's my first line. There's my second line. So I can see where they are crossing. So that means I can go and calculate the intersection. So again, I'm going to press second trace, so blue button, and then calculate. And I want to know where they're intersecting. So I can actually just press the number 5, and it goes to the graph. So first curve, second curve, guess. So enter 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. The solution, it says intersection, says 4 and negative 5. So that is our solution. X is 4, y is negative 5. So our coordinate is at 4, negative 5. And again, this is solving systems of linear equations using graphing.